Welcome to the Relocated South African, the show for navigating immigration from South Africa for a better future. I'm your host, Jan Hugo from Lagos in Portugal. Check out our website, www.therelocatedSouthAfrican.com. It contains a whole lot of useful information and details of all episodes to date. If you want to interact with us or comment on our discussions or even participate in an interview, please contact me on jan@therelocatedSouthAfrican.com. Also, if you like our content, why not subscribe on your favorite platform? Today, I welcome from Athens in Georgia in the USA, Danie Brink. Welcome, Danie.
Thank you so much, Jan.
Well, Danie's a math teacher who lives in Georgia in the USA with his family. He has told me that they are now living in the US for the third time. I would imagine the final time. But we'll get to that. So, Danie, maybe let's go back to the beginning. I always ask my guests to tell us a bit about your history, where you grew up,
Yes.
went to school, university, family, and how you got to the US.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Jan. It's a privilege to be here. I listen to your podcast regularly, religiously. So, I was born in the Free State, the big city of Steynsrus in the northern Free State. And went there all my 12 years of school. Then I went to the army in Pretoria and also then to Turkish, studied there for 3 years and then became a mathematics teacher. I taught at Pretoria Boys High School all my time in Pretoria. And my family and I, first Lisa and I came to the US in 1997 and 98. And then we came back again in 2004 until 2007. And then we finally now, I think maybe never say never, but I think this is the final time that we came at the end of 2019 here back to Athens in Georgia.
Okay, well,
Yes.
a couple of questions. It's funny that I had a guy on the podcast the other day, you may have heard,
Mhm.
Nick Latouf, who went to Pretoria Boys High, and
Yes.
obviously Elon, but
Yes.
so it always comes up. It's a great school. And did you
Yes.
enjoy teaching there?
It was wonderful. It was absolutely glorious. I remember I taught for 4 years and then we came to the US and then I went back for another 7 years. And when we left that second time, I thought to myself, are you just crazy to leave this wonderful place and setting and environment? It turned out to be a good decision, but we were so happy. We never left because we were unhappy. We stayed on campus. They've got about 12 houses there. For the staff of the school, and so you walk to school obviously in your gown. You have these gowns like judges, and the boys are so respectful. Lots of culture at the school. I see that the school is 125 years old this year, and so this week they started the school with John Smith, who was an ex school head boy there. It looks like his son is now at Pretoria Boys High School, which I didn't realize. But we had a wonderful time at Pretoria Boys High School. I still have some of my colleagues that are still there, and it was a wonderful time.
Awesome. And what brought you to the States the first time in 97?
You know, 97, 98, I think the US had a shortage of physical therapists, physiotherapists, and almost every physio that finished off at Tucky's came to the US. It was so easy to get a H-1B visa. And so Lisa is a physical therapist. And so we came basically for her to just enjoy the freedom of coming to the US so easily. And I studied just to keep myself busy. It turned out to not be such a great experience. I mean, it was good, but it was foreign and strange. And we never came permanently. After 13 months, I finished up my studies and we went back. Many of those physios that came in those days are still here. I mean, in fact, 3 of them, they had a little bit of a reunion the other day. 3 of them are within 100 miles from us here accidentally. You know, were in Seattle and so on, but 3 of them are close by here. And so that's just interesting. Many of them stayed, but we obviously went back after 13 months.
Okay, and 2004?
2004, I came for, the main purpose was my studies. By then, Lisa and I were married, we had 2 kids, and at some stage I just wondered, I had a student in my class in Pretoria Boys High School, Jonathan Jansen. He was, I think, rector of Koffsies or something. His son was in my class at Pretoria Boys High School. And I thought to myself, how do you fund graduate studies in the US? And I picked up the phone and I called Jonathan Jansen. I think he was Dean of Education at Tucky's at that stage. And I think he had a naughty son. And I think he thought, I'm calling him because of stuff with his son. And so I got directly to this important man, and I said, no, I don't want to talk about your son. How do you fund studies in the US? And I think maybe that's the answer that he gave me the confidence to apply and do this. And maybe for your listeners, some of them who are considering immigration, will find it interesting that it actually is somewhat easy to come here and do graduate studies because it is pretty well funded. And so that was the second time I got a graduate assistantship. So professors in the US, they apply for grants for different kinds of research that they do, and then they are looking for cheap labor. They have money in hand, and they're looking for graduate students to help them with the research or to take up their teaching position while they do the research. And so built into the application for funding is funding for, I'm calling it cheap labor, but it's for graduate students. And so people who have degrees can definitely consider graduate studies in the US because it is so well funded. And that's what funded our second trip. So I got a graduate assistantship, which is not a lot of money, but I mean, it funds your whole time. You live in family housing, you're on campus, you ride on the bus to campus and back. And I mean, I supported my family, wife and 2 kids on this graduate assistantship pretty easily. But you do take a step back because, I mean, you lose 3 or 4 or 5 years of competitiveness in South Africa. It does cost you money. Sometimes you have to supplement a little bit with South African rand. You have to store your stuff. It gets old, or you sell it for low value, and then you go back and have to buy new stuff. So I think you take financially and maybe professionally 1 or 2 steps back. But man, for the richness of experience, it's 5 steps forward. So that was the second purpose. It was my graduate studies.
And it's still in mathematics?
Mathematics education, mainly.
Okay.
In that interim, after the first time, I became the head of the math department at Pretoria Boys High School. And I was interested. I mean, 14 math teachers, they're the best that you can find in South Africa. And I was wondering, what value can I add to their lives as their boss, as the department head of 14 math teachers? And so my interest coming here was the professional development of already highly qualified math teachers. And so my PhD was specifically focused on that, And so that was the academic quest that I had. But just an adventure and possibly considering immigration, looking what it's like. The first time we went back, I always said to people, I think we can always leave again, but things are not that bad yet in South Africa in 98. Let's go back. I love my country and family and friends, all those things. Let's just go back and we can come again. So 2004, we came again. 2007, when we wrapped it up, let's go back again. And people were critical of us, saying you've got the inside lane now. So this is the other thing that people can maybe consider if they want to consider immigrating to the US. Doctors and lawyers and those, it's difficult to get into the US. And now with Trump, he put $100,000 fee on an H-1B visa. A company here, the first $100,000 that they're going to spend on you is just for the visa. I mean, they can easily just appoint an American unless you've got highly super skilled skills that you can compete with. But I don't think any company here will pay $100,000 just to get you. So if you do graduate studies, after the graduate studies, you get, I think it's called a J1 visa. So now you're allowed to work in the US for a year or two, also to gain now practical experience in your field of study. And then the J1 then leads to a green card and then into immigration. So I think maybe your listeners will find it interesting that graduate studies. Oh, and by the way, we do in South Africa a degree, honors, a master's, a PhD. Here, you jump straight from a degree. And then sometimes you'll find a student on campus and you say, what do you study? I had a friend in Radford when I started in Virginia in 98. And he was a youngster, like 23. And he said, no, he's doing a PhD in aeronautical engineering. He only has an undergraduate degree, but then they built a master's degree inside of that 6-year process. So people shouldn't have to think, I have to have all these advanced degrees. You can, from just with your undergraduate work, if you have a competitive application, you can basically almost start saying you're doing a PhD. First of all, just a master's degree of 2 years, submit your work, and then roll right over into the PhD, then roll over into the J1, and then possibly a green card and citizenship after that. So it's a possibility. Yes.
I mean, a question that would probably come up in the minds of the listeners is, how do you apply? Where do you start with this?
Hmm.
Because there's so many schools, universities,
Yes.
and they call them schools in the States, that it's probably a minefield. But do you have advice for that?
Yeah, look, when I applied, you obviously know nothing about these places. So I chose some mountains. So I applied at the University of Colorado. I applied you throw your hat in for some fancy schools and see if you can maybe get in there. So I applied at Stanford. I forgot. Oh, and then I liked rural areas like Platteland, because I'm from Steynsrus. And so Georgia and North Carolina, I think I applied at NC State and Georgia. Now you must know all those professors, they have grants, they have money, they're looking for good students. So it's not as if you're hassling them. So on the website, I mean, there's applications and graduate studies. In my time, and I still think it's true, you have to take the graduate record, I think it's GRE, graduate record exam. It sounds intimidating, but it is not.
Okay.
Really, it's a math part and an English part. The English is super tough, but you compete against Chinese and Japanese that cannot speak English at all.
Yeah.
So although the English is tough, and man, as a Burki, you know nothing about that exam, you get a few points, but it is more than the Chinese and the Japanese, and then the math part, I mean, okay, so I was a math teacher, but it's not rocket science math. It's kind of school level math. And if you're kind of okay with it, or you take a week or two to dust off your trigonometry and some algebra, you will be able to get a competitive score on the GRE. So yeah, websites, pick a few places, oceans, Platteland, city, mountains, whatever you like, and they will be beautiful places and fantastic universities with those characteristics in mind,
Awesome. Danie, and just moving on. So when you went back to South Africa, did you stop teaching?
Yes, I took a little bit of a detour to Namibia first. My sister at that time was in Namibia, and so I went to teach in Windhoek for 2 years, and then went down to Keetmanshoop, the big city of Keetmanshoop. What a lovely time there with wonderful people. So we lived there. I was a school principal of a small private school there, also taught mathematics. And then some friends of mine from Takis, there was a position open in South Africa. I went back to South Africa. Then at that stage, for about 12 years, I left teaching. But I was still involved with professional development of teachers, and I started a thing that in English, it could be called the School Support Center, which is under the Solidarity banner in South Africa. First, I was CEO of Help in a Hand, which is a non-profit in South Africa. So there, I was there for about 8 or 9 years, and then did the School Support Center. So very involved with conferences for teachers. Again, applying what I learned here at Georgia. How do you take these brilliant Afrikaans math teachers and make them even better, add value to their lives, make their teaching more interesting? And so I was out of teaching for a long time. And I mean, I never thought I'm going to be full-time back into the classroom, but immigration, you have to swallow your pride. Sometimes you have to, I hear your listeners, professionally, you take 1 or 2 or 3 steps backwards, but when you think, why are you doing this? It's mainly all for our children and their futures. So now I'm back in the classroom for the last 6 years.
Okay, fantastic.
Yes.
Okay, obviously you've, and maybe if you don't mind that we cover it now, I know you and your wife have this wonderful charity that you run in the US.
Yes.
Maybe if you want to just tell us about that and how that came about.
Yes. Yeah. I think so. We were in a horrible car accident at the end of 2016. My family and I and my wife lost her leg, and 2 of our kids passed away in the accident. So she's been an amputee since the end of 2016. Few people might recall that the solidarity movement and my colleagues and people in Pretoria and over the whole of South Africa supported us wonderfully. They raised funds for a leg for Lisa. An amputee has to have this very expensive knee, and there were fundraisings, and people just contributed wonderfully to the efforts, and we got donated to us this wonderful, expensive new knee. That the knees are just exactly as expensive as a car. And so that's the first part. She's an amputee and she received a knee. And then we came to the US, and through a long story, we came into contact with an organization that donates these knees and all components in the US. Legislation here prohibits a second-hand value to be had on any of these components. I think it's a legal thing. You cannot give your knee to another guy and he falls with it and he's going to sue you, kind of thing. So there are these wonderful but expensive components all over in America. And Penta is an organization that donates that to African countries, Ghana, I think, and India. They send crates full of these expensive components to countries where it's legal to use them again. And so we just stuck up our hand. We started a nonprofit here called Stepping into Grace. So Lisa is now the CEO of a company that receives these expensive pieces of equipment. And we link up then with prosthetists in South Africa, some that she knew, her own prosthetists in South Africa. And we are sitting at the moment where the nonprofit has helped almost 100 people with new, expensive, not new, used, but almost new prosthetic limbs. So we are hopefully heading back to South Africa in June, hoping to make a celebration of the 100th patient that has received a knee from Lisa. We are thinking symbolically, but also practically, that this specific knee that the South Africans donated to Lisa will now be donated back in June to the 100th patient back there. We had it serviced here, and just to give people a perspective why I'm saying these things are as expensive as a car. I drive a $2,000 Corolla, but the service on the knee was $3,500. We get them for free. So Lisa and I, we're just basically the facilitators of receiving these. And prosthetists can request on Stepping into Grace's website any components that they would like. If Penta has them, then they send it to us and we send them on to South Africa. A wonderful thing, so easy to do. And so many South Africans that are poor are receiving high quality components that takes them out of their wheelchairs back into the employment, and just a wonder. Excellent stories.
Oh, that's a beautiful story coming out of a real misery. I think that's absolutely wonderful. And
Yes.
do you collect funding for that?
Yes, we do. We basically, my father-in-law always said, jy stuur 'n hoed om. We sent the hat around, almost like a collection, mainly to our American friends here. We just had a feeling, we don't want to burden South Africans to have to fund this. And so we have some friends here that like the cause. And I saw with Help an Aunt also, sometimes people they support you, and whatever you do, if they trust you, they will support you. And that's why we had to start with our friends, a close circle of friends, and they've been wonderful. Some of them donated just one-off amounts of money. Some of them write a check every end of the year before the IRS come and take their money. And some of them donate on a monthly basis. And we use those funds to fund the process of sending these pieces over to South Africa. Sometimes, and we try not to do it often, sometimes we have to fund a little bit of the work that the prosthetists do in South Africa, because someone just has nothing, and here comes an expensive knee, but the knee must still be fitted. They must get lots of work done. So you cannot request. Those prosthetists are wonderful people. They're in the profession to help amputees, but they cannot just help every patient for free, So sometimes we also help a little bit with the medical costs and the cost of getting the prosthetic limb fitted, and so on. So funding is wonderful.
That's awesome. Well, what we'll definitely do is we will put the details at the end of the episode in the
Wonderful.
show notes.
Yes.
And obviously we do a lot of social media, and I think there's this Lekker network that's now been formed with South Africans abroad. So I think the wider we spread the net, the better it is, and the better opportunity there is for you to get more funding and get people to support it, because I think it's an incredible initiative. So well done to you guys.
Thank you
I
so
take
much.
my hat off to you.
Thank you, Jan. Yes.
Danie, so let's move on a little bit. I assume you guys have US citizenship by now.
We don't have yet. We are in our 6th year. We just completed 6 years. Everybody that you speak to, almost, they came just before or after COVID. We also, it feels like we brought COVID to the US. We came at the end of 2019, and it's a long process. So we first had an H-1B, which is a normal work permit. And about 2 years later, we got green cards, which, man, I tell you, there were some South Africans in our house that evening. One of them brings these young farmers over, on those H2 visas to America. So Manuel was here with some other ex-colleagues of mine, and I see these fat envelopes on the kitchen table as we say goodbye. And I say to Manuel, man, that looks important. And Manuel and everybody leaves, and we open that up. Man, here's our green cards. 2 or 3 years before, now that's permanent residence. Now, unless you make the people here angry, you can stay forever. And then I think it'll take 5 or 6 years. No more hoops to jump through, but I don't know, it's just a process. We will be a year or two from now, we will become citizens.
Oh, that's great. My kids who live in Dallas, they
Yes.
got their passports last year, but
Okay.
they've been there about 7, 8 years now.
Yes.
So,
That
and,
sounds like the turnaround time, basically.
and they traveled back to South Africa with their US passports now. So,
Really? Okay.
yeah,
Wow.
no, that's fantastic.
Yes.
So, talk to me about living in Georgia and Athens specifically. What makes that special?
Yeah, look, it's a student town. It's almost like Stellenbosch or Potch. I think maybe a little bit bigger. I think there's 130,000 people here. So I think we have a specific, unique connection because on one hand, it makes us feel young because it reminds us back to when I was a student. But then just by the way, I mean, I think I was 36 when I came to study here. So people must never feel that they're too old for graduate studies. You put your life on hold a little bit, but what a wonderful way to spend 3 or 4 or 5 years of your life. So we were not young, but we were students and younger with a young family, and life, hadn't had its aches and pains so much in our lives. So I think Athens carries for us a little bit of that memory back, but it's a student town with lots of things happening here. There's about 44,000 students at the university with a big football team. Our football stadium has 93,000 seats. So, I mean, the town only has 130,000 people. But on a Saturday, when there's football, which happens 6 times a year, home games, the vibe from Friday, you can just imagine how many people come into town, that there will be 90, and it's sold out all 6 games. 93,000 people on their bums on their seats. So the vibe in the town is just wonderful. There's all sorts of, you can watch baseball for a few dollars, but high quality sports. And so it's a student town. It has all the benefits of a student town. And then in summer, it's totally quiet, which is wonderful.
Which is great, yeah.
Yeah, so and I mean, Georgia is a conservative kind of state. Americans are just like Afrikaners. I mean, I think people know the history. We're both sets of immigrants from Europe. We both had great treks. They went west and Afrikaners went north. We both fought the indigenous people. We both fought each other, us in the rebellion, them in the Civil War. We both fought the British. So we are so alike. We think alike. And it's no wonder, even though they sound so different to us, that it's easy to become friends with an American. And as Georgia people, I don't know what it would be like in a big city, but anywhere you go in a rural area, this guy that speaks this funny language, you shouldn't be surprised if it's easy to become friends with him because you think very much alike. They like freedom. They like to be left alone. Their history in that regard is maybe a little bit different to us. We had in the old days, 70s and 80s, we had a controlling government. Things like we always say were all either mandatory or illegal. Americans don't think like that. They don't like the government at all. I mean, they vote the way they vote, but they don't like interference in their private lives. Liberty and freedom is a big thing for them. And it's something that resonates with us Afrikaners. It resonates quickly and easily well. If you find a farmer here, he's going to be your friend. Just spend time with him. He's going to become a good friend of yours, So that's the area we live in.
That's interesting. Danie, which school is in Athens?
It's the University of Georgia. So every state has basically almost like a flagship, the University of Wyoming, the University of North Carolina. Sure. And so there's 2 major famous schools in Georgia. It's Georgia Tech, which is in Atlanta, which is even more academic than University of Georgia. We're kind of, how could I say it? We're almost like the Grey College of rugby, and there's maybe Georgia Tech is more like the nerdy university, highly academic, engineering, and so on in the state. Yes.
But that's a Georgia Bulldogs where you are.
Yes. The
Okay,
Georgia
cool.
Bulldogs. Yeah.
Yeah. I lived in Jacksonville many moons ago. And that
Jacksonville, Mississippi.
Florida,
Oh,
Jacksonville.
Florida.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
In
where the
the-
big game is between Georgia and Florida, isn't it?
Okay, yeah. Well, I
Yes.
was there in 84 to 86, so it's
I
many years
see.
ago. But yeah, it's my friend's father was the athletic director at Florida State, so we used to go and watch the games from the box at the top. It's amazing.
see.
So I know all
Wow.
about homecoming games. Yeah, it's
Yes.
amazing.
Yes.
That's amazing. Donnie, moving on, you mentioned in our communications that your wife Lisa, is that right?
Lisa, yeah.
That she does homeschooling with her kids.
Yes.
Why did you go that route since you are a teacher yourself?
You're asking a philosophical, educational question. I think practically, we traveled a lot around a lot, and like you have to pack up your chickens when you move. We had to pack up our kids and move often. So I think logistically, first living here in Athens, then in Namibia, then in Pretoria, back here. It was, first of all, practical, but secondly, I believe in the system. School, and what I do as a teacher, I try and make my classroom as close to homeschooling as I can. I think that's good education, where exploration is encouraged, where curiosity is nurtured. I don't think schools are like that much. Schools are often, especially here in the US, it's a big babysitting exercise. Kids are just babysat 8 till 3 p.m. and then they go home. So it's tough to switch on their curiosity and make them even think that this is an environment that they come to learn at. They almost see it as a babysitting exercise. Someone the other day said the US education is a $2 trillion babysitting exercise. Really, I mean, I try my best daily. I have control over 150 kids. I try daily to chisel away at their curiosity, but it is blunt. You have to find deep for it to be found. And so school is not often a place where kids can be curious and explore, where homeschooling is that. There's lots of freedom and, I don't know what the English three-legged race, dribien races. School is a three-legged race. Homeschooling, you run by yourself. You run at your own pace. If you're done for the day. So my one son sells firewood, so that's his little private business, and they've got more hobbies than what they actually need to, but they have time for those, because they are not running a three-legged race with other kids. They run by themselves, and then they can run fast and finish and be done and move on to other interesting things. And by the same time, you can make their academics interesting. You can try hard to make their academics interesting also.
So which syllabus do they follow?
We cherry pick a little bit. So for Daniel, who's 11 now, we just do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. The US has an interesting senior phase, high school phase, where you can really also cherry pick. He did at some stage an economics course, so you just buy that economics book that you like. He did a motor mechanics course, so just how to service your car and so on. He's now doing, through the local smaller university, chemistry. He's done 4 courses there, so he will just get in his own car and drive there and take courses there, and they count towards high school credit. So you can do almost anything you like here. You of course have to do 4 math courses, 4 English courses, and so on. There are some requirements, but within that, I mean, like Afrikaans is one of his foreign languages, and so that's pretty easy to him.
Yeah, you've heard that I spoke to Jacques du Plessis in Wisconsin.
Yes. That was my first one that I listened. It's still probably my favorite. He was excellent.
He's a nice guy.
Yes.
And then you can go to university. You have to take a SAT or what?
Yes. Yeah, the SAT is the big hoop to jump through. So many universities did away with that, but it's not popular. I mean, SAT is still a very large predictor of success at university, and so it's optional. And so if you come with an SAT score and your opponent doesn't have an SAT score, you will probably get in, and so so they take SATs and then go to university.
Okay, excellent. Just quick question around life in general. What do you do on weekends? And
oh yes,
what's life like there? Is it like Steinsrus?
Oh, It's much like the farm on Dangerous. So I mentioned that Johan sells firewood. I'm his cheap laborer. So I split a lot of firewood. So people that cut these big oak trees down, we contact them and they come and dump the trees for free in our yard. And then I split it up and we stack it. And a year later, when it's nice and dry, then when it's winter, then Johan sells it. So I split a lot of firewood. Obviously, I have almost a hectare of my yard is a hectare big. So I don't have other cheap. I'm the cheap labor that that takes care of this yard. So when I come inside, the garden man in South Africa, his name was Jim. So when I come inside, then Lisa says, "Hey Jim, come, here's your food." So I do that. We do some hunting. We have a wonderful friend with a farm 2 counties from here. And so when it's hunting season, we sometimes early Saturday morning, freezing cold. It's so miserable. It's much worse. Hunting in South Africa is so lovely and it's so bad here, but we do it. And then so we do some hunting twice a year. I want to tell you about this little thing, which is so easy for expats to do. I have a shooting day on that farm of my friend John. I invite some people and I charge them $50 and we take the money and we donate it to a project that my son and I started in South Africa. It's called Help Jagd, where a hunter can donate some deer animals for the project that feeds poor kids in South Africa. So twice a year, I send out a text message to all my friends and I say to them, it's $50. You come, you shoot, I buy you a steak. Oh, and they love it. I tell you, I make it on the oak fire, on the floor there. I braai like we do. And it's just so foreign for them. So some of them don't even shoot. They say they'd come only for the steak. So I say to them, it's $50 if you come, but it's $100 if you don't come. So I get some people and then I send the money and I pay it over to Help in the Hunt, to the project help. So for expats, it's actually so easy to, so we collected $1,400 with the last shooting day, which is a lot of money. I think it was 25,000 Rand or something like that. And it's so easy to do. And you and your friends have a lot of fun. And so people must just maybe think, what can you do to collect and obviously get a nice project in South Africa that you can support. I think you've had guests like that on. So that's so easy. Yeah. So the hunting and the side issue to the hunting is just the target shooting, lots of farm things. I go to the farm, I help that farmer a lot. He loves the concept of bartering. So one time there was a storm coming through and he had lots of trees down, which then obviously fall into his pastures, and farms are small here. So a big old tree that takes up some pasture is a bad thing for a farmer. So I cut up 3 trees for him and took them away, and he gave me a cow's worth of mincemeat, So we barter in that way. We barter. There's a restaurant here. To eat out in America is expensive. You will not have money if you go to restaurants all day.
Especially the tip.
Yeah, 20%. Basically the minimum, And so on a single salary for a teacher, we don't eat out much. But somehow I got this fancy not fancy, it's just a medium type of Italian restaurant, the Palmas in Athens. He likes to sit with his wife in the backyard and have a whiskey with a fire. And so he's heard about our firewood. And so we give him a face cord of firewood every year. A face cord is 8 foot by 4 foot. That amount of firewood, 32 square feet of firewood. And then he gives me 2 meals at his restaurant a year. So people love the concept of bartering. Americans also love that because they don't have to give the money to the IRS, because, you get services and the other one gets services at the price that you're supposed to be getting it. So that's how we keep ourselves busy with some, and obviously housework. Lisa does that. I call her Betty because, that was the lady that did the work there. So Betty works here and Jim works in the outside on weekends.
That's awesome.
Yes.
And Danie, in our communication, you spoke a little bit about the cost of living, and you mentioned it now as a teacher, that people sometimes think you have to be wealthy to emigrate. You have a different view. You want to maybe just give us a sense of,
yes,
you talked about the bartering, but otherwise just general sense of cost of living.
Yes. Yeah, look, it is my standard specifically in teaching now. if you want to know, and I mean, teachers worldwide complain that they don't get paid enough, and I don't think we get paid enough for the impact we have in the lives of kids, but it is what it is. It will not easily change. But my standard for if teachers are paid kind of fairly is that if two teachers, married couple, husband, wife, if they're both teachers, can they have a good standard of living? And the answer is absolutely yes in the United States. And so, I mean, we get by on a single salary. And so to have two teachers, in earning a salary would make you live really comfortable. You will be able to have 3 or 4 kids. You will be able to put them through university. You will be able, some of my colleagues retire now. They're younger than me and they already retired, And so that's the standard of living. But for an immigrant, and your listeners are considering immigrating maybe to America, you will take 3 or 4 steps back, That's why I will still have to work, hopefully, for a long time to catch up these 3, 4, 5 steps that I took back in my career because of immigration. I'm busy doing a teaching license now in the state of Georgia with 23, 24-year-olds that are first-time teachers, and I have to jump through that painful hoop, for example. My mentor supervisor that is now supposedly having to see if I can teach. I think I'm just as old as her, maybe a little older. She's a retired school principal. So you have to swallow your pride. You have to just do what you do. You have to convince yourself. You have to remind yourself, why did you immigrate? It's a constant, it's not moonshine and roses. I think some of the people, they land big jobs, corporate jobs and whatnot. But most of us, we have to almost basically start at the bottom again. But it's very doable. And I mean, immigration is not for everybody, and immigration is different for everybody. It's different to every country. I can just basically speak to America. You can make it, even if it is not this high flying corporate job. You will take a few steps back, but if the push factors away from South Africa becomes such that you feel you have to do it, it is possible. It's definitely possible. You have to just grind and maybe work 10 years longer than what you would have if you stayed in South Africa.
Yeah. But and I think, a thing that I've said many times in these conversations is when you make a move, you mustn't look over your shoulder. You kind of have to apply yourself, even through those tough times. And I can imagine that for you guys, it must have been a tough experience with everything that you've been through. And as a couple, I think that's the most critical thing is you've got to be on the same page.
Yes.
Because one cannot sit and cry about going back every time
Yeah.
things go wrong, and they will go wrong. There's no doubt that it's not as you say.
Yeah.
And it's not
Yes.
moonshine and roses all the time.
No, definitely. And I mean, that's why we went back in 97, 98, because both of us were miserable. And so we went back. Now at this stage, I mean, we cannot afford to both be miserable and want to go back. And I mean, again, it's possible to be able to go back. And I don't know if all immigrants agree on this, but for me, the choices I made because of what I saw in South Africa and the things that made me worried, I hope I'm wrong. It's the one decision, the one big decision in my life that I super hope that I'm wrong, that people 10 years from now will say, look at this beautiful rainbow nation. You were a cynical person to immigrate. We went back last year after being here for 5 years, and every little indication that I got that maybe things are going to go well was good news to me, excellent news to me. I don't sit here hoping that South Africa will go to the dumps, but it is tough here. And like you say, if I'm down and Lisa's up, then she helps me again, reminds me of the reasons why we came and so on. But man, do I hope that we are wrong, because we all have family and friends back home. And even just the Afrikaner nation that I am really loyal to, the poorest of our people, they don't have options to leave. And for them, I so hope that things go well. I mean, if you look at the rugby team and the stadium when the Springboks play, that little vivid view is a beautiful thing to see. And one is almost envious of that from this side. But we each have our reasons why we left, and we have to stick with it. And I won't mind at all if I was wrong. Not at all.
Because then it'll be good for you and good for everybody back home.
Absolutely.
But
Yes.
yeah, and there's not one rule that applies to everybody. I can't walk a mile in your shoes and you can't walk a mile in my shoes because it's just, we have to make our calls
Yes.
and stick with what we think is good for us. And we say we have so few days on earth, we may as well make the best of it
Yes.
with the information that we have at our disposal, and we do what we do, So it is.
Yes. I just want to maybe mention one thing. I started contemplating coming back to the US, and I went on a run in Groenkloof in Pretoria. I have two wonderful dear friends, and us three ran in the mornings at 5 a.m. And I didn't want to, I still kept my cards close to my chest about my thoughts on immigrating. That one morning, I just said to the two of them, "What do you think about immigration?" And they each, from their perspective, with the variables in their lives, spoke to me about. And the penny dropped for me that day. One of them had kids at university already, and he just said, I cannot go anywhere. And then I realized Mika is at that stage in standard 9, grade 11. I better hurry up. If it wasn't for that day. And so that was my set of variables. David, my friend, confessed to me that he's worried, but he cannot go because his kids are at university, and he wouldn't want to leave, and they have girlfriends and they want to stay. Then I realized, okay, for me, the Brink family, I have to get out of the country before Mika graduates and goes to Potch or Stellenbosch or whatever, So that's just the uniqueness of the set of variables that we each have, So
That's
yeah.
very, very true. And I think, the question in this, and maybe it's an obvious question, is safety a big issue for you and your family? Was that part of the reason why you left?
I mean, it wasn't not an issue. The other day, in my math class, I said to kids, they must sometimes think we're strange. Well, first of all, it's strange for them for me to call myself an African, because they have just they have one perception of what an African looks like. And I then say to them, go tell your parents at home, this African says to them this and that, and the other. And you can see their eyes are this big. But now I say to them, this rule, whatever the math rule is, you better know this rule. Even if I come into your house at 2 a.m. in the morning and I wake you up and I say, what is this? Then you must know what it is. And now that, they have comments about me entering their house. And then I said to them, I explained to them the concept of safety in South Africa. I said to them, we have that wall and the electric fence and a dog and beams and steel gates inside and a rifle under your pillow. By the end of it, it wasn't even funny to them. Their eyes were just this big, So, I mean, safety is not an issue. We did, obviously, I mean, some people have a traumatic experience and then for that they immigrate. We never had that. It's still, I mean, I try and celebrate the safety that we have here. I had a friend in Pretoria who lived in a fancy neighborhood, but somehow it was next to the Morletta Spruit. And so people entered their yards from the Morletta Spruit, which they couldn't keep out. And he told me that when he goes and he puts stuff in his swimming pool at night, he takes his 9mm with him for safety reasons in his own yard. And every Thursday evening, when I take the trash can to the street, I think of that guy. And I'm thinking, I would have had to take my 9mm with me now that I'm walking in my pantoffels and my pajamas to the street with no fences in between. Sometimes I go to my neighbor and I walk right like through the bush into his yard, thinking he will shoot me or anything. So we have ways to celebrate the safety. It wasn't the main reason for us leaving. For me, it was the corruption. Remember 2018, the Zondo Commission was still going on, and I could see the Zondo Commission is going nowhere. And that was my penny that dropped and said, we better get out of this. If the Zondo Commission cannot lock up people, then I don't want to be in this place. And so, yeah, we have to celebrate safety, all the time. We don't lock any. I mean, America is not like some of the European nations where nothing will ever happen. I mean, now and again, a bicycle could get lost here and so on, but at least you don't have to put the stuff in your swimming pool with a 9mm at your side.
Yeah, and you don't lose your life for a bicycle.
Yes,
yeah, no,
yes.
it's, I'm a cyclist, so I cycle a lot out in the country.
Yes.
And every time I see a lady running on her own on a country road and there's nobody around, or a lady cycling on her own, and, as you say, we almost celebrate it, but that's normal. We never
Yes.
lived in a normal society, and I
No,
guess
no,
that's the difficult.
definitely.
Donnie,
Yeah.
and just another few questions. With this whole Afrikaner thing, with this refugee thing that's been blown up and getting
Mhm.
quite big, have you been exposed to any of those people?
Not directly. Lisa is on a WhatsApp group with Savitu, South African women in the United States, and they care for some of the refugees that come here.
Okay.
And so the leader of that little WhatsApp group has asked for some donations and some needs that people had, but I have not spoken to any of the refugees. I teach a lot of, I think, illegals. You know, we're not supposed to ask. I teach Venezuelans, specifically with Maduro now in the news, and ask them about that. So I rub shoulders with other immigrants, but not specifically refugees. My friends obviously hear it in the news, and then they test my viewpoint on it and how do I feel about it and so on. So quite a few friends at church that we like to discuss political issues, and so we chat about those things. They are aware of the refugee thing, and I mean, I can understand, you know, a country like America has the decision to let in or out whoever they want. And I mean, you and I are both Afrikaners. We don't think it's a bad thing for a country to let Afrikaners in, to make the requirements easier for Afrikaners to come into a country. It's sad again for the brain drain in South Africa, but that's not necessarily the fault of the Afrikaners.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you. It is it's just something that's happening, and you know, it's. I still feel sorry for people who want to leave and cannot leave. I think
Absolutely.
that's a very difficult place to be.
Before we left, on my Twitter account, which is now X, I asked, do you want to leave? No. First of all, I said, can you leave and can you not leave? But then I split it up. Do you want to leave or not leave? You know, I don't remember how people reacted, but I am sad for those that want to leave but cannot leave.
Cannot leave. Yeah.
I mean, lots of people can leave, but they don't want to. And that's perfectly fine. Those are excellent people to have in South Africa, you know. But those that want to leave but cannot, the refugee program is a little bit of a safety net, possibly. I don't know. I mean, I heard about 70, you know, that it's going to be a total of 70,000. I mean, there will be possibly a Congress swing later this year. You don't know about legislation, and, you know, Trump's not going to be there forever. I don't know how permanent that program is going to be, you know. So we'll have to see.
Donnie, just we're slowly getting to the end. Just a
Yes.
question. You mentioned friends in church and so on. Is it? Do you have a lot of South African friends or mostly Americans?
We mainly have American friends. We slotted into our church, which is obviously a Presbyterian church, a bigger church, like 700 members. And so there's one other lady from Namibia, south of Namibia. When I was principal in Keetmanshoop, they come from, I think, Stampriet. And her dad and I spoke once. So Elna lives here. She was on a tennis scholarship. She married an eye doctor, and they live here. So another South African in church. Vilma, we met in 2004. She came here immigrating, a nurse in early 2000s with her two sons. So Vilma lives here. I think there are a few more Afrikaners here, but we wanted to just basically assimilate. We didn't specifically seek out Afrikaners to have a little Volksstad here or something. You know, I think it's a good thing to be involved in your community and community efforts and exercises, to get to know your neighbors and to reach out to them. They reach out to you. I mean, we do that in South Africa in any case, you know, as Afrikaners. We get involved in our community and our schools and so on, and that's what we do here. We don't specifically seek out. I mean, tonight, Ronaldo Barnhorst is going to come and braai with me. So so he's a postdoc here at the University of Georgia. And so Philip is in Atlanta. We have a few South African friends that I've picked up through university or hunting or church or so, yes.
You talked, sorry, I have to ask, do you hunt elk or whitetail? I think is what they call it.
Whitetail deer. Oh, there are plenty here. People say we're up to our whitetails in deer.
Yeah.
But there's a lot here. They get struck on the roads the whole time. It's just, and people that live here say, like 50 years ago, there were almost no, I think the quota per hunting season was 1 or 2 deer. Now it's 12. It's almost a nuisance. And we can hunt here in town. We can hunt in the city, obviously only with a bow and arrow. But I mean, it's, the ladies that get their daffodils eaten, they love the deer, but they also are not too sad if you shoot them because they eat their flowers in town. Yeah, mainly hunt whitetail. We have a little place in South Africa where we hunt. We went last year. Oh, it's idyllic. And I mean, the hunting, it's like hunting in South Africa is a 10 out of 10. And in America, it's a 2 out of 10. I don't know, maybe a 1 out of 10. It is pretty awful, but I mean, we love hunting, so we do it.
Okay, now my son and grandson, that's why I'm asking. They
Yes.
also, they're in Dallas, and he took him on his first hunt last weekend.
Okay. What did they go shoot?
Also whitetail, that's,
I see.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
also on a guy's farm. So, but I
Excellent.
think it's all about this. The little guy's 14 now, so he's just
Oh, yeah. Perfect.
getting into it, so that they're loving it anyway.
Yes. He'll never have money for drugs. He'll only buy guns now.
Absolutely. And in Texas, as they say, they can carry.
Absolutely. Those guys are crazy about the rifles. But I mean, I tell you, over here, I hunted on John's farm here in Franklin County for 2 years. And I thought, mate, why does this farmer lease out his hunting? He doesn't hunt himself. And I thought, maybe he doesn't like guns. He has more than 100 rifles himself. And he was quiet. These people are crazy about the rifles, I tell you. It's so fun.
Danie, maybe a couple of last questions. If you think back over the last years, 20 years or so, is there anything you regret in terms of the move that you've made?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it would definitely have been wise to have stayed. Now that I'm in the US and I've immigrated, I mean, if I stayed the first time, I would have been retired by now. But I would have had American kids, and, that trajectory is different. If I stayed the second time, I'd be close to retirement now. And here I am the third time, just starting my career. But I mean, so it's not a regret. We had such a wonderful time in Namibia, fantastic time in Pretoria, working for the solidarity movement, working for a cause that I'm really passionate about. And now have the opportunity, specifically for Lisa, to give back in a big way to our people, and me with the hunting stuff in a small way, and maybe it'll grow one day. Yeah, things would have been different, and financially you would be at a different place if you made different choices. For the richness of the experience, I'm not sad. I think we are where God wants us now at this point of our lives. We, the experiences that we had were mainly wonderful ones.
Excellent. And I guess the message out of that maybe is what you're saying to the South Africans who are thinking about it. Rather go sooner than later. Get it done.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of your other people that on the podcast said, you don't have to pack your bags and say, I am now immigrating. I mean, if that's how hurtful you are, that's okay. Do that. But if you wonder, you can always, if you're 30, 40 or 50, you can always come and see how it is. And you can always go back. You will take a step or two back. But for the sake of checking that box and being comfortable and say, it's for me or it's not for me, you can come. That's my main message is, if you wonder, try it. I mean, just try it. You don't have to come forever. You can always go back. Lisa and I are proof of the fact that you can go back 2 times and come back again, and still it's okay.
Oh, that's awesome. That's fantastic. Wow. I don't know. Is there anything else that you want to share? I mean, we're getting to the end.
No, keep up the good work with your podcast. I drive an hour and 10 minutes every day. So I need from you many, many interesting podcasts that are at least an hour long, because that's what I want to. I listen to hunting podcasts, and when you have a new one, then I listen to you. So keep bringing them out. It's wonderful.
Thank you very much. We have a few in the bank, so
excellent.
There will still be a few coming.
Good.
So thank you so much, Danie. I really, really appreciated your honesty, your openness. I think you guys have had an unbelievable journey, and out of real tough times, building something, this charity is amazing. So thank you so much. Thanks for sharing.
Blessings to you also, Jan. Bye.
And the charity is called Stepping Into Grace, can be found at steppingintograce.com. Is that right?
That's right. That's exactly right.
Okay. Thank you. If you enjoyed my discussion with Danie and would like to hear more about the experiences of South Africans who have left the country, why not subscribe on your favorite platform? If you would like to share your story, contact me on jan@relocatedSouthAfrican.com. Until next time.